Hello folks, welcome to Right Angle Overseas. My name is Priyank Ruparelia, and after a very long time I have prepared a very useful video that you might be requiring, or it might turn out to be helpful for you. So this is how whatever we are going to work on will work. A sender tries to send an email to your Gmail account. So you receive an email in your personal Gmail account with the title sender@example.com. It could be any email address. Once you receive that in your mailbox, every minute a trigger is set that scans your emails, that scans your first 20 newly received email. You can set that trigger, you can set the limit to first 20, first 40, first 60, first 100, n number. But it tries to scan the most recently received mails in your inbox, and if that email, if it tries to compare it with the address that you have provided, you want to verify it, and if those two things matches, an SMS from Twilio API is triggered and sent on the phone number. At the end, you receive the SMS on the given phone number with the subject of the email or the body of the email, however you want to achieve that. So that is the end goal of our application. But what will you need, you might ask? So keep these things in mind before we begin. You will be needing a trial of Twilio account. You'll be needing a number purchase from Twilio. It is free. You can purchase that free from you because you get, I think, $15 of trial whenever you sign up on Twilio. Then an SMS service activated on Twilio itself for your testing. In the next part, I'll also show you how exactly you can create a new SMS service on Twilio. It's a very simple two-step process. Then a Gmail account where you want to receive the emails and trigger the the app script. A blank Google Sheet because we would be controlling our data using the Google Sheet. And finally, some knowledge of JavaScript would be helpful because we would be using GS. Lastly, if you see, there would be a Google Sheet created by you which would have an app script attached to it. Now, app script, inside it, we would be setting a trigger for every minute to read the emails. If you do not have that criticality of your situation, then you can maybe set it to run for after every 10 minutes or every 20 minutes. I think that would be more helpful, because if you try to trigger the app script every minute, there is only a limited number of executions that you can be allowed to use for free, and then Google literally locks the trigger for a day. So you can set the trigger to whatever you want. If it's very critical, I'll ask you to not just use a free service, but you'll have to migrate the whole app script project that we build to a custom server, and then you can run it. Then you can run a cron any number of times that you want. But that's, I think we would keep that on a later video. But this is what it will do. It will run every minute to read the emails and fire the Twilio API whenever an email is received from sender@example.com. Another responsibility of the script is also to read the Gmails from any account that you are giving the authorization of. So if you have your script embedded on your personal Gmail account, but if you want to use a special alerts account to receive the email, then you'll be able to do that using this. But be creating an account using Twilio. So here you can visit the URL try Twilio and fill in your details and click on start on free trial. And once that is done, you can verify your email and then get back. Okay, after verifying your email, you might also be asked to verify your personal phone number that you want to use, and you can give your personal mobile phone number or the number where you want to receive the alerts of your API. Please remember that since we are using a free trial of Twilio, you would not be able to send SMS to literally any arbitrary number that you want. You will have to verify that number first, and only then you would be able to send the SMS. After you verify your SMS, you would be asked these questions: which Twilio product you're here to use. You can try SMS. What do you plan to do? Alerts and notifications, or anything. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't change or do anything. And how do you want to use Twilio? With code, of course. And what is your preferred coding language? You can say my preferred coding language is JavaScript. And would you like Twilio to host your code? Of course not. So after you set this up, you would be coming at this console of Twilio. Now if you see carefully, this is the dashboard of Twilio, and you can see that you have a balance of 15.5 in your account. Now please keep in mind that these two things that you see immediately when you open this, copy this information and open a notepad and simply paste it, writing account SID. So this is your SID of the account that you would be utilizing at a lot of places. And then you have your auth token. I would not be showing you my auth token, of course, but you can copy that and you can paste it over here, titling auth token XYZ. Haha, I'm clever. After doing that, you have to go to programmable messaging, because we would be using the API service of Twilio in order to send the SMS to our desired individual. And after doing that, you'd click on try it out. Once you click on try it out, you would be asked to create a setup that would hardly take 5 minutes. And this is where they say that you have to create a messaging service. You need at least one messaging service to send your SMS from, but for different purposes you can create different messaging services. So let's say after you set this up, let's say you want to buy a premium of Twilio, you have to create a new messaging service and provide the credentials of that new messaging service into our application, and we'll go through that process. But firstly, this is my trial message service, let's say, and you can write create messaging service. They automatically select a phone number for you, and that's totally all right, because right now it doesn't matter from which number do you receive the SMS. So you can write down the number like this. Twilio is a old service, it will really cost you less, I'm sure, at least in India it does. So after doing that, you would be able to see a try SMS option. You can simply click on that place, click on the messaging ID, select your messaging ID, and you'd be able to see over here in the curl command, you can simply copy this messaging ID and paste it over here. I don't think I would be even needing to come back to Twilio now, because these are all the things that we need from the side of Twilio. Rest everything would be done by code. Alright folks, so as you can see on the screen, do not worry, I did nothing fancy. All I did was I created a new empty spreadsheet on sheets.google.com, and I have renamed it as SMS Twilio service, and I have added all these fields that we would be utilizing for triggering the API and identifying the issue, identifying the solution. Here you can see I have written email ID to check, where I have written my personal email. So if I send any email using this email ID to any authorized email account where the script is deployed, the SMS would be received to whatever number you have written send SMS to at. I know it might, I did not articulate the issue well, but you get the idea. So you would be requiring send SMS to, on which number do you want to send the SMS, send SMS from, the SMS that Twilio had given to us, because only that SMS would be able to use. You have to write paste your account SID in this way. You have to paste your auth token, you have to write your message service ID, and finally the email ID to check that which exact email ID do you want to check against. Okay, so that is it. And please make sure that in column A and column B you write it in this format only, because right now we have statically in our code mention the values of these columns where this information would be fetched. But if you see, yeah, I think that is all you need to know for now. And after doing this, what you will do is go to Tools and click on Script Editor. So a new window would be created. Oh, I'm sorry, unable to open the file at this time. Let me check again and get back. Okay, folks. So basically what I did was that I simply opened the tab in incognito, signed in back using my Google credentials, and here I was. I went to Tools, Script Editor, and I was able to open this window. And here you can see there is a file, a main file called code.js. You can literally rename it to anything you want, but that's how Google prefers. And you can see the main function, but would not be using just this one file. Actually, would be using multiple files. And in the description below, I have attached my GitHub repository where you'd be able to get the code that I would be writing. And I would not be writing anything. I would simply be copy pasting it right now. And you'd be able to find that on my GitHub repo. Yeah. So in code.js, we'll be pasting this code. And do not worry, do not fret. I'd be explaining you the overview of the code so that you are not literally confused at what just happens in the backend. After that, you create again a new script and name it as let's say fetch sheet info. Fetch sheet info. You do not need to add the extension. It gets added automatically. You copy this code, and you can see this code in your GitHub profile. Then you create another script, name it on open trigger. Open on open trigger, copy the code, paste the code. Another script again, and you name it send SMS. Open send SMS, copy the code, paste the code. And lastly, you need a script called service status. Open service status, copy the code, and paste the code. So you have added all these files in your app script. You can name it anything. We can name it simply Gmail, Twilio, SMS service if you have not already. So you go to triggers and you would be getting manage all the triggers. You have to simply click on add trigger. What do you want to run the trigger for? You want to run main function every time this trigger is executed. Choose the deployment, choose with deployment. Head is the default option. Select the event source. Now in the event source you have to select time driven because you want to run this trigger every single minute. You can also choose, if the thing is not very critical, you can choose an hour timer, or in the minutes timer you can write every minute, every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I would advise you that if your setup is not that critical, if you do not want to receive the SMS as soon as you got the email, you can choose every 10 minutes or every 30 minutes as well. I think that's more feasible because for every minute you might have to prefer or go with the paid plan of the Google because it only has a certain limitation for executing the trigger for a certain time. But for now, for our reference, we can click on every minute and click on save. So this means that on this particular script with this code, main function will be triggered every single minute.
Okay folks, so I'm going to talk about something very important related to the app script without understanding which you might see that your service is not working or you are not getting any SMS because of the way how I have written the code. If you click on Twilio SMS service, you'll be able to see two options. One is disable or enable the service, and two is sync details. Every time you read over here disable service, that means the service of our app script is enabled. Whenever you click over here, you'd be able to read enable service, which means that currently at this point our app script will not work, because sometimes the case is that when your emails are already open or when you're already on the desk, you might not want to receive the SMS. Okay, so that is why you can control the nature from here, the on off switch of our triggers. Second thing is the sync details. Sometimes you want to change the email ID to check, okay, instead of checking the emails received from Piro Parelia, you want to check emails received from someone else at @gmail.com or any other domain, right? So in that case, whenever you make any change in the app script, in the Google Sheet over here, you have to click on Twilio SMS service and click on sync details. Once you click over there, only then the changes of these fields would be registered in our app script. By default, the app script registers the changes every 24 hours because of the caching system that I have written in the code. But if you want to sync manually or save or update, in simpler terms to say manually, you have to click on Twilio SMS service and sync details every time you make any change over here. Those were the two most important things. And the third thing, now this is extremely important, without which your app script will fail to run. If you can see over here, you will have to create an SMS sent on a label, SMS sent label on the email which is being scanned by your Google Sheet, because it will help you keep a track of all the emails that sent an SMS. So if you go to here, create new label, you'd be able to create a label called SMS-send. Make sure that you name it exactly like this, because this is the way how it has been coded in our script. I'm sorry for the hard coding, but some things are just necessary. And this will help you keep track of all the emails whose SMS were sent on your devices, so that you can verify or do any kind of analysis in future. So if you click on SMS sent, you'd be able to see that 2 of the SMSs have been already received by me. So after you make all these configurations, finally you can see once the trigger is created. I haven't created the trigger right now in my case, but you would be having one trigger mentioned over here. But after you check all the things, you also check that the service is enabled and you check that the details are synced. You click over here once. After you do that, you can test your email service by sending emails. So if you read over here, let me change that to puruparelia@gmail.com as original. After you change, also make sure that your token is valid. I have just written XYZ for now. Every time I'd be receiving an email from this email ID, namely puruparelia, on my tech.writeangle@gmail.com, this SMS script would be triggered and I'd be receiving an SMS on my given mobile number 95866420012. So that is it. That is how the whole scenario would be executed. If you're having any queries, any questions, or anything else, guys, please write it down in the comments so I can help you out. Also, make sure to star my GitHub repository, and I hope this video was helpful to you. Thanks and have a good day.